The President. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Employment Amendment Bill 2018. Mr. Yiu-chung. Good morning, President. I would like to speak on the Employment Amendment Bill 2018. I would support the CSAs moved by the Pan Democrats asking for PL to be increased to 7 days. As a representative from the social welfare sector, every time when we discuss labor issues, I feel shameful. We are lagging behind in terms of our family-friendly policies, but we hail ourselves as a cosmopolitan city, but then our backward proposals are triggering strong response from the community, and one of the greatest hurdles is the business leaders. For example, Mr. Tommy Zhang takes the lead in objecting increasing PL days. On the website, there have been some comments in a series, and they said that if I join the election, I will anger Hong Kong people. Mr. Chi-kwong in his blog said that the 5 days of PL is the government's only option, and he has quoted from Yiu-chung, saying that he is bold in facing all these objections. And Mr. Tommy Zhang also said that there should not be even one single PL day. In the past, we used to not to have PL, and we didn't have ML either. And Mr. Tommy Zhang again made another remark, and he said that this is a greedy demand on the part of the labor sector. They would go on asking for more PL days, say 14 days, or even 1 year. I'm not a father myself, but I think these are the most callous remarks that I've ever heard. Well, these remarks enraged Hong Kong people. We are in the 21st century already, and I will not retort Mr. Tommy Zhang's remarks by saying that you should not carry with yourself a smartphone. These are distorted arguments, and these are emotional remarks. What I want to say is that we are living in a civilized society. We should be talking about gender equality. So if you think that males don't need PL, you are objecting to equality among the gender. We used not to have PL because there were stereotypes of males and females in the past, and females had to take care of the children, change the diapers, and this was so very normal in the past. And if you can't cope with it, it's your problem. But as stereotypes in the society are being changed, we are seeing changing values of the role of the male and females in Hong Kong, and males are taking up a bigger role in the family, and the two sexes are considered equal, and females are also pursuing a career themselves. So it's not the males who are working these days. And when there were talks in the hospitals about childbirth, the nurses often say that the males can play a part in the childbirth process. So there should be equal roles of male and females. But then in the workplace, females get ML because they need to take care of their babies. But for males or men, in the childbirth process, they don't have a role. We've been striving for 20 years, and finally we got only 5 PL days proposed now. Say, for example, if the mother and the baby are normal, so how are these 5 PL days distributed? Well, my thinking is this. Well, one day you spend on taking care of the mom, and then another day spent on applying for birth certificate for the baby, and one day taking the baby and the mother to the maternity, the maternity home, and then the third, another day, taking the baby to the hospital, and the fifth day, making healthy soup for the mom at home. So these are the 5 days. They don't even get a day to rest. They don't have a time of intimacy, time to encourage the mom. The fathers would like to take a day or two off to take care of the child. Maybe they are worried about the mother having postnatal depression. They don't. They don't have an extra day. If they want to apply for leave, the boss will say, "So sorry." Well, the boss is paying you. Well, please think carefully whether you need to take a leave. I am the one paying you. So think seriously, think twice before you consider applying for a leave. Now, if we still think that males are the workers and then the females have to sacrifice their career, are we still talking about sex equality? Well, in a family, the men and women should play an equal role. Why are you depriving men of the right to leave during the childbirth process? The fathers have to have time, spend time to learn how to be a dad and to consider making the best arrangements for the families. So PL will mean that there is better equality for men and women in the workplace. We are also talking about building core family values, encouraging men to play a greater role in the family. Now, we are proposing 7 days, and the government says that it will withdraw the proposal. Have you consulted the family council on this? Now, in the past, we used not to have PL. Well, in some grassroots families in Hong Kong, dads have lost their opportunity to take care of their newborns. Tommy Zhang thinks that there is no problem. And then Mr. Lord Chi-kwong said that he is bold enough and he could face up to all these criticisms. He thinks that there is no problem of not having the father participating in raising up the children because they think that the men don't have a role to play. And all these comments mean that they are actually depriving men of their basic right in the childbirth process. And these are very stubborn thoughts and principles, and the government must interfere in all these, and they should make amends to or change the values where only women are playing a part. You are saying workers are being greedy in our demands. Well, instead of saying this, and I would say that Mr. Tommy Zhang's remarks are also remarks of oppressing the workers. Family-friendly policy is very important, encouraging childbirth. Mr. Lord Chi-kwong also said that Hong Kong's ML standard is lagging behind many African countries. So the government is duty-bound to conduct a review. But local men, have to pay a lot of efforts in taking care of their wives when a child is born. But then their PL is lagging behind in international community. So why are you insisting that you would not increase an extra 2 days, and you lack political determination? Maybe that's one reason. And then maybe the government is not willing to push through a series of labor policies which will hit the business sector or the employment sector. And Mr. Lord Chi-kwong said that the 5-day is the only government option acceptable to them. And please cherish this hard-earned option. I don't get it. Mr. Lord Chi-kwong is a veteran social worker. How can he, on the one hand, criticize ML arrangement in Hong Kong lagging behind African country, and then at the same time he's saying that the government proposal on PL is the only option available or acceptable? We're going to cancel the offsetting mechanism of MPF, and that will undermine the business sector's interest. maybe the government doesn't want to increase PL days just to appease the business sector. How or when will Hong Kong really advance with the times and build a family-friendly community? In overseas countries, PL days are very common, ranging from 3 to a dozen days. And in European countries, say, for example, in Sweden, in 1974, the ML has been changed to an arrangement where the leave can be shared by both the dads and moms, and the PL and ML is increasing in the number of days, and so that we can build a harmony within the family. The divorce rate in Sweden has continued to drop since 1995, and the Matthew Zhang, CS4A, and the government have boasted about many enterprises providing PL, but then pending legislation, I don't think it works. In order to build a family or family-friendly policies, PL and ML are essential. Men have to support the family, so 5 PL days. Well, I would not call that family-friendly. I heard that Mr. Law appreciates Singapore, this lion city, but in this lion city, men can enjoy 2 weeks PL, and women can enjoy 16 weeks of paid ML, and the men can also apply for another 4 weeks leave to share out the responsibility of caring for the newborns. Since Mr. Law appreciates Singapore and its government, should we be modeling after Singapore and formulate more family-friendly policies? Secretary, I know that increasing PL from 3 to 5 days comes as a result of rounds of negotiations, but then 5 are too few. The God created the world in 7 days, and he created the world in 6 days and took a day's rest. And we are talking about lives of newborns, and they're very, very important. 5 days. The first day, helping the mom discharge from the hospital. Second day, birth certificate. Third day, taking the baby to the maternity MCHC. The fourth, taking maybe to the hospital, and fifth day making soups. And then if we have the sixth and the seventh day, then I would think it's a perfect arrangement. So I speak.
Mr. Charles Mock. President, we are here to discuss the Employment Amendment Bill 2018, and the subject matter is to increase PL days from 3 to 5, and some members have asked for 7. If international media are to cover this debate, well, they will laugh very heartily. Let me show you my personal experience. During the summer vacation, Mr. Alvin Young and I went to visit the Silicon Valley. We went to the Facebook Corporation, and there's a plaque saying, expecting mothers. The employees that are going to be mothers, that is, and they can even use parking space closer to the entrance, for prospective mothers. And they are providing ML of 4 months. 4 months. And it's not actually called maternity and paternity leave. No, I mean that they don't have anything called maternity leave or paternity leave. It's just leave for the purpose of caring for the newborn baby. So the mother can take turns or take leave together for this purpose. And they also get an endowment, more than $100,000 for the newborn. And Mr. Dr. Fernando Chung had talked about the big firm, the big four, the accountancy firm, the AE bank, etc., are offering attractive benefits. And also, let me add, don't copy the U.S. laws because I'm talking about the corporate benefits, not the law. And even big corporations on the mainland are offering similar benefits. For example, Tencent is offering a month. For those bosses who say that even one day of PL is too much, why don't you learn from the big corporations in the US? It said that SME will find it difficult to find replacement manpower. We're talking about just 3 to 7 days. And how many children can you have in your lifetime? The PL is just for 3, 5, or 7 days. And if you find this difficult to cope, what about the sick leave? Because PL would involve advance notice. And if you cannot cope with PL entitlements, how can the business be competitive? This is no excuse at all. It said that SME's competitive edge would be affected by PL. Well, I would say that they are not competitive from the very beginning. They can only gain some competitive edge if they attach importance to employees' benefits. The World Economic Forum issued a report. In June, we ranked in recent months, we ranked number 7 in the chart. I asked the secretary what would happen to promote innovation and technology. What's the policy on innovation that we are going to introduce? The worst subject that we did in that assessment was labor rights. Well, so don't forget that the competitive edge of the city has to take into account labor rights. Or it doesn't make you more competitive by making labor rights non-existent. And some employers think that we will be most competitive if we don't offer any benefit. For advanced economies, they offer 30 days of annual holiday. We only offer 12. Should we copy what the mainland has been doing and claim that Hong Kong to be a developing economy? We want to develop our technology, and we want to be innovative. And we have just talked about the Inland Revenue No. 3 Amendment Bill, which was passed. The business sector has got what it wants, but the employees cannot get what they want. The bosses keep saying that talent is very important. What they want is to import talent. They want to treasure their local talent, and they are paying lip service to the labor rights. Dr. Fernando Chung has worked out the sums. The PL of 3 to 5 days will not even account for 1% of the total wage bill. And even the rental increase from the landlord will be way over that. But you can do nothing to stop the rental increase. But on the other hand, you can always exploit your employees. But please don't do that anymore. The members from the business sector have been campaigning about the different rights, ML, PL, and legislative amendments adding to the cost. Well, actually, all these combined will make you more competitive. Whenever a bill is tabled in this council for the purpose of protecting consumer rights or promoting labor rights, the business sector would always refer to SMEs. What about big corporations? And the government has taken the lead in offering more ML and are the big corporations in Hong Kong doing the same? I've been talking about IBM, big Facebook offering 10 to 20 weeks of paternity leave, way exceeding the statutory requirements in their country. We're not saying that all SMEs in that country should copy what the big corporations are doing. No one is asking for such an extreme. But what about the basic responsibility of big corporations here? Many of them are not shouldering their responsibility. So please don't use the SMEs in Hong Kong as your shoe. As Mr. Jackie Chan has said, well, Chinese people have to be properly governed. And therefore, well, big corporations should also be properly ruled. And when we talk about ML and PL, we are talking about the mothers and the employers, but don't forget the newborn babies. They have to be protected. They need the best environment. When they have just arrived to this world, we have to protect their interests. They're also Hong Kong people. Protection of the babies will certainly override other interests. The baby wouldn't say that you should go to work and earn money for my baby formula. We have been talking about a shortage of talent and manpower, and the business sector have been saying that it's difficult to recruit the right people to work for them, but still they're so mean about PL, and the government is only listening to the biased views of the business sector. I attended a women's night conference. I go every year. I go usually for supporting the promotion of technology. When I discuss with some women on equal opportunities and equal rights, people who care about women's rights refer to this debate in this council. They say this is a question of the gender equality. They remind us that this is a big issue of gender equality. It's not offering assistance to fathers or to men. PL is not about getting a vacation. It's about the father doing his rightful duty to share out the difficult task of caring for the newborn. How difficult is it for the boss to redeploy manpower, or how much would it cost the employer? Well, that's not the real issue. It's an overriding right, which is much more important than cost. We're talking about just a very minor benefit. It's about a few days of PL, and the government still doesn't want to do more. This is not really in keeping of our status as an international city. Maybe our ranking would drop in the competitiveness league. If that's the stance of the government, how can you encourage people to have more children? We're suffering from a shrinking workforce and aging population. What about our future? The employers only care about the present. So how can you encourage young people to have hope in our future and to have more children? Our policies and our employers should give hope. Well, I regard those people who are in the childbearing age, young people. How can you tell these young people that they should have faith and they should hold out some hope for our future, how can we make them feel that our policies are for their future, for their good? How can you convince them that you are doing this for their well-being? And now we are only here to debate about whether the PL should be 3, 5, or 7 days. It's really shameful.
Mr. Felix Chung.
主席。
Thank you, President. Usually, we, of course, know this is what the pro-democratic camp and labor representatives would say about PL. But I remember in 2014, when we first legislated for 3 days PL, I said it was okay. Even 5 days that is proposed today, I think it's no problem. Even if you amend it to 7 days, is okay. The problem is, today we are talking about 5 days, 7 days, 14 days, a month. That is the problem. You talk about cost. I can do a simple sum for you. A middle-ranking employee, say he earns $50,000 and 5 days, it would equal to about $6,000. Can we not afford it? Of course, we can afford it, right? In Hong Kong, you have 1 child or at most 2 children. And if we allow you, say, 2 children, it would just be like $10,000. Of course, we can afford it. But the thing with the administration is, in this term of government, this is only 1 year or so into the this term of government, and it has rolled out 4, 5 labor policies. And there is a cumulative effect. There will be abolition of the offsetting mechanism, and then there will be a rise in the minimum wage, and then extending ML, and now increasing PL. And yesterday, some labor sector members said the labor holidays should be increased from 12 to 17. And then there is a whole array of other things, and there will be a cumulative effect that will be translated into pressure for employers. Of course, if you talk about labor issues, you stand on moral high ground. If we should say anything to object, it will be called unscrupulous. That will be the label that will be put on our head. You have never been in business. Let me give you my business to try to manage it. If you can do a good job, I am convinced and I would support every measure you propose. But it's not as simple as that. Every time there is a labor issue, you set employers against employees. Are we that uncaring? Are we that callous? Please put your hand on your heart and ask yourself. Of course not, especially the SMEs. I said here last time, if there was a problem, the employee could talk to the employer, and within half an hour, the problem would be resolved. That is the reality. Say if they want 1 or 2 days more leave, and the employer would say, well, okay, go back, take care of your family. This is how employers and employees have been getting along. This is a culture of care. It should not be that whenever there is a labor issue, you would say that we are miserly, uncaring, and so on. Please, the administration, can you not roll out labor issues in a batch? Please give us some reprieve. Please put in gaps between the rolling out of different labor issues. I think this is what the problem is. Whether it is PL or increasing ML, we are talking about family-friendly policies. Of course, this is something we all support. But family-friendly environment does not depend on 5 days or 7 days. It has to be built over a long period of time. You mean if you have 2 weeks PL, the baby would remember that you once fed him, once you changed his diapers, No, you have to take care of your family over a period of 10 years, 20 years. When the child is in kindergarten, you get up early and you ferry him to the school in your car, and you get up early, then you have breakfast with him. Well, he will remember that instead of you changing diapers when he was a baby. Of course, having a few days of PL so you can take care of your wife, that would be best. Therefore, don't say that if you don't have those few days of leave, it is not good for the baby. Come on, the baby is not going to remember that. And of course, having a family-friendly environment is a tautology. But that is not what your life is about. You don't depend on just a few days of leave so you will have a good family. And President, some members say, let's follow Japan. They have 52 weeks. Canada, 75 weeks. Now, this is exactly where the problem is. Today, you are talking about 5 days, and then you mention 7 days. Some people are already calling for 2 weeks. And then you say you want us to follow Japan. But do you know how much income tax people pay in Japan? It's up to 40%. Canada, 33%. Are Hong Kong employees happy to pay 40% income tax so the administration will take care of you and then you have 52 weeks PL? You have to tell the other side of the story. Don't just say 75 weeks in Canada. Look what they are doing. Well, look how much take-home pay you have in Canada. Therefore, tell the whole story. Don't just say one thing and not the other. It's just like standard minimum wage. Like Mr. Jonathan Ho said, we should have annual review. But President, thank you for your wise leadership for disallowing it. If you have annual review, it would mean we are going to legislate every year. And PL is not like SMW. The SMW has an adjustable mechanism, but PL will just be on the rise. How can we reduce the number of days of PL? If you want annual review, why don't you just directly say increase it by 1 day every year? Why don't you just legislate to say every year we have to increase it by 1 or 2 days instead of saying you need a review every year? Don't think we should just follow the CPI. Why don't you just say directly, how much do you want, and let us just go for it, and then we can put it aside instead of saying you need a review every year. What is there to review about giving birth to children? If you want leave, say so. If you want 7 days, just say so, and let us just go for it instead of asking for annual reviews. And President, there is something more. Talking about birth rate in Hong Kong. This has something to do with the entire society instead of one or just two policies. I have this friend who have 2 children. He is from Hong Kong. He said, children are so lovely. He is going to have a 3rd one. He is not looking at affordability or any kind of pressure, but they just love to have children. Some choose never to have children, and they are speaking here in the chamber today. I would say, okay, you are fine with the theory, but you have never been a parent. Be a parent, and then you will know what kind of family-friendly policies you need and what it means to take care of a newborn baby. Last but not least, as I said, 5 days is not a problem. So basically, we support
the increase of PL from 3 days to 5 days. But then there are two things. Number one, administration, please do not put out a whole range of labor issues. Give us some time to digest them. And secondly, the labor sector, please, if there is something you want, just say so instead of making claims endlessly. Thank you. So I speak.
Mr. Raymond Chen. Today we are resuming the second reading debate on the Employment Amendment Bill 2018. Actually, there is nothing much we can say. The Secretary is now here, but then you won't heed our views. And even if you have heard us, you would not change. And you are not allowing changes. You are not allowing CSAs. And then if you CSAs, if these CSAs are endorsed, you are going to withdraw the bill altogether. So you are making things difficult for everyone here. So this is the attitude the government has now. The Secretary even didn't want to have a bills committee on this bill. After the first and second reading, the Secretary, you wrote in your blog saying that you should apologize to the fathers in the past 9 years, because originally these fathers should have been able to enjoy these extra 2 days of PL. But then since the legislators requested for Bills Committee to be established, so because of this, the bill could not be handled before the summer recess, because it would, the very earliest, the bill will be enacted after Lunar New Year. So I'm helpless. Well, this is the most despicable tactic. Well, Mr. Chung said that the workers are pitted against the employers, but then the Secretary is pitting the legislators against the fathers. So he said that it has nothing to do with me. If you want to criticize anyone, criticize the legislators. Well, actually, the fathers, many of them are reasonable people, and they would not think that the establishment of the Bills Committee is doing a disservice to them. The Secretary said that I'm not asking the members not to raise or move CSAs. It's their basic right as a legislator. But then if we have an extra day, 2 days, from 3 to 5 PL days, it is a hard-earned consensus reached by the employer and employee sectors. There is no room for further revision. Well, I've already spelled out what the Secretary is going to say. He's trying to implicitly or explicitly lecturing the legislators on teaching them how to do. Now the legislators could move CSAs, but you didn't necessarily have to establish a Bills Committee. If a Bills Committee is not established, we could have been finishing with the job before the summer recess. That's a ridiculous thinking. But if we move the CSAs, you don't discuss them at the Bills Committee, they could be discussed in the Council. The Secretary, well, no matter how the CSAs are very good and how consensus has been reached by the Bills Committee, these CSAs will not be endorsed because the Secretary has many ways to hamper the moving of the CSAs, and then I will speak on them one by one. Now, in the split voting arrangement, it's very difficult to pass members' CSAs. So in case we are so fortunate that the CSAs are really passed, the Secretary can withdraw the bill. Well, some reporters just asked me yesterday, don't you find that there are a lot of paparazzi around? Yes, of course. Because if the CSAs are passed, the bill will be withdrawn. But then nobody gets to gain if that is being done. So this year, I didn't join the Bills Committee. I saved my time. So I saved my energy to speak up here and to spell out my thoughts here at the Council at one go. In 2014, there was the Employment Amendment Bill 2014, and there was a second reading debate. I could, well, recite the script that I wrote then. I just changed the dates and the numbers. I think the rationale behind my arguments is similar. Of course, in 2014, while the long title was a bit longer, it says that the bill would enable male employees to enjoy almost 3 days PL after the child has been born and is entitled to 4/5 wages at a rate of 4/5 of his average daily wages. I don't have to read the long title of this bill. Well, in simple terms, it's increasing from 3 days to 5 days. And many of the USAs said that they deviate from the long title and could not be moved. And some members have moved that the rate of 4/5 be increased to full pay. But then because this long title doesn't mention anything about the change in the wage rate, so these could not be moved. So the government has, over the years, been adopting this approach to limit the members' rights to move CSAs. As long as what you propose is not mentioned in the long title, then your CSAs will be ruled out. And the president actually was ruling out these CSAs in accordance with the government-established practice. And I will not criticize you. So back in Employment Amendment Bill 2014's discussion, and because of the long title, I was not allowed to speak on certain things. In the long title back then, there was the mentioning of male employees. So at the Bills Committee back then, I raised this point, and I would like to share this point with you today, Secretary. Under the government's logic, every time when we have a debate, we are talking about the future. And we will have a vote very soon, and what we're discussing here or at the Bills Committee is something for the future. In case there is a chance to further amend the PL legislation, how can we do better? I think this is a progressive idea to some. Maybe some found that unacceptable. It's a spouse leave, not necessarily a paternal leave or paternity leave. When we had the discussion, the EOC raised some points. It said that generally speaking, a female spouse could be considered as maybe acting in the role of a father whenever a child is born. So we can have two females taking care of the baby. So apart from the mother, maybe a close person should be taking care of the baby together with the mother. So from the equal opportunity perspective, the mother's spouse should be given leave, and that will help promote gender equality. Well, I'm talking about you incorporating this very progressive idea when you review PL in the future. But then in the present arrangement, the baby's mom and dad do not necessarily have a marriage relationship. So I'm not challenging the marriage system here, and the present law doesn't require that there is a sort of blood relationship between the father and the child. Maybe some people are not clear about that. If we talk about two female partners, there is a possibility that the female spouse can have blood relationship with the baby, because maybe the egg of that spouse is being taken out of that spouse and then inculcated into the mom's womb. So I think the very close person related to the mother should be able to enjoy leave. When I discussed that, and Mr. Tommy Zhang had this very ridiculous remark. And if the female undergoes a transactional or surgery, then she will become a he, and then he can get paternity leave. Now, Mr. Tommy Zhang has just stepped out. He is a representative of a capitalist or a very miserly boss. Well, his image is typically like that. Mr. Chung Pan is different. He says he supports BL, and he doesn't say even one single day is too many. And maybe he even said that, well, just give me the number and then get that unchanged for 10 days. Let's cut all the trouble. Well, if somebody in the LAB raises this, well, maybe you can discuss that. Well, you don't want to have an annual review. Maybe you can then ask for the number of days you want, say 7 days and 10 days, and then we can get it passed. Or maybe you can put in the legislation that it will increase by 1 day every year. Then that is another approach. And maybe we can think about that in the future. So maybe we can take a progressive approach, having 1 extra day every year, year by year, and then the bosses will know exactly how many days they are going to give. But I would like to respond to Tommy Zhang's remark. The birth rate in the past 10 years ranges from 1.06 to 1.28. And it means that in a lifetime, a male just gets usually one paternity leave once in a lifetime. Well, I wonder who is mentioned most in our debates today. Is it Chi-kwong or Tommy Zhang? And Tommy Zhang was against banning smoking all indoors. He said that thousands and tens of thousands of employees and bars will go out of a job. But is it really the case now? And Tommy Zhang said that he was against SMW, and 30% of the eateries will close down. And then if it is going to be done, it should just be $20 per hour. Well, all these didn't happen. When eateries closed down, that has nothing to do with SMW. It has to do with property hegemony, exorbitant rentals, etc. So Hong Kong's child care services are in acute shortage. Too, I would like to reflect this to the Secretary too. When after babies are born, very soon you have to plan for taking care of the child, planning for his education. While the mothers are being pregnant, the moms start looking for kindergartens for the children. And you can ask Ms. Young. I mean, the pressure is tremendous. And if we're talking about double income families in the grassroots sector, they are even in greater difficulties. They need independent, subsidized childcare centers to take care of the children. There are just some 10 of these childcare centers providing some 100 places, and the utilization rate has all along been over 100%. In Kwun outlying islands, Taipo, there aren't even any subsidized childcare centers at all. In 1819, it is said that there will be more. I won't go into the details, but I'm sure that the Secretary knows better. The double income families, the parents are facing dire difficulties. I agree that we should give 2 extra PL days, and I don't think that it will determine whether you are going to have a child or not. It's just a gesture to show appreciation. Well, a lot of civil servants are not taking PL at all. And Mr. Matthew Zhang said he doesn't take any leave at all. So we are talking about a right, whether the dads use them is another thing. And some members that says that they will not pick it first, they will vote down on it. And some other members would abstain from voting. And some other members that say will reluctantly accept it. I think we know the decision already. But what I want to do is to let the secretary know what we are facing today, what room we can maneuver, and let's all work together towards achieving this better goal.
Ms. Yong Hoi-yan, I support the proposal in the bill to increase PL days from 3 to 5. I believe that this will help the men, offering more help to their wives who have just delivered. This will mean that the newborns will be taken care of by their fathers. PL is important for families, and there are new fathers who have been interviewed. They say that even though their employers offer PL, but that they are even busier when they take PL. They have to take care of the newborn, they have to take care of the mother, they have to wash the milk bottle, do the sanitation and cleansing, buying groceries. They don't get any time to sleep. These new fathers would like the community to understand the importance of PL for them. And Mr. Chan Chi-chin asked me whether during the pregnancy, I'm already feeling the pressure. But this is understandable. A family with a newborn is facing a lot of pressure. And once the baby has arrived, we have to plan for schooling or childcare. Many families have both parents working, and childcare facilities are very limited in supply, and the cost is heavy. It would be even more costly than hiring a domestic helper. It's in some cases it's more than $5,000. Okay, returning to PL. As Mr. Chung has said, the employer is facing pressure from all sides, from the introduction of different employees' benefits, and he's saying that we should give some leeway to the employer. But I would say that we should also give the same to families with newborns. Annually we are talking about 50 to 60,000 newborn babies. And it's not just that the newborn babies will be thankful. The more than 10,000 parents will also be thankful. According to a survey, 5.2% of new fathers suffer from postnatal depression. I'm not talking about mothers. Fathers also suffer from postnatal depression. According to some psychiatrists, if the father is suffering from postnatal depression, not just his own emotion will be affected, the newborn's development will be affected, and the baby is more likely to be suffering from ADHD, and there will also be other psychological problems when he or she grows up. There are many services offered to mothers suffering postnatal depression, but not much attention has been paid to fathers who suffer the same condition. And it said that the alarm signs are different among fathers. They may be confused, they may be angry, or they may be behaving strangely. I hope by offering 2 more PL days, we can minimize the onset of postnatal depression among fathers. Well, nowadays, couples both work, and then if they have a newborn, they will have the father will have to take care of the mother as well as the newborn. It's a lot of pressure to these men. I've compared what we are doing with mainland Singapore, UK, and Taiwan in terms of PL. We offer the fewest day of PL. It's only 3 days, 3 PL days. Singapore and UK 14 days, Taiwan 5 days, and the mainland 7 days to a month, depending on the province that you are in. Singapore, Singaporean government foots the bill. UK government foot the majority of the bill, and for Taiwan, the employer, and Hong Kong, the employer is responsible for the pay. We started late, so we have greater room to improve. But it seems that if we increase the PL days by a big margin, then maybe that's not in line with our economic reality. I think any improvement to PL should be gradual, and there should be consensus reached by the employer and employee in the LAB. It's not easy to have a consensus reached. We should respect the mechanism under the LAB. This time, the proposal to increase the PL days from 3 to 5 is a result of the consensus in the LAB, and I think I should and I will support the LAB's position. Increasing PL to 5 days is acceptable under today's circumstances. Increasing the PL days to men so that they can better take care of their new infants will be my long-term goal. I note that some members have proposed to have said that if we increase the number of PL days to 7, SMEs and micro-enterprises may face difficulties. If we increase it to 7 PL days, very likely the employer will have to engage substitute workers. Therefore, when considered whether the PL day should be increased by 2 days or some other proposals, we should strike a balance, and we should then consider all views expressed in the community. Improving the PL benefit may affect SMEs or micro-enterprises. But I understand that many employers are already offering more PL days than the legal requirement, such as the government. I believe they are acting as good employers. The government should provide more incentive to encourage more businesses to offer their employees benefits which are better than what is provided in the employment law. President, for new mothers, they would certainly like the fathers to be given PL to take care of them or the infants. I think the beneficiary under the PL's arrangement is not just the father, but the newborn and the mother. So increasing the number of PL days will be certainly beneficial. With these remarks, I support the resumption of the second reading of the bill.
Mr. Kim Yun, President, just now, as a pregnant woman, Ms. Eunice Yun told us her expectations for PL. She said that she really hopes that when she delivers her baby, her husband can be with her. Well, that is going to be such an important moment. I think this is important. It's not just at delivery, but for some time after delivery. Ms. Yong and many members mentioned that in the process, there will be a lot of pressure. But at the same time, I want to point out, when a baby is born, there is not just pressure, but a lot of joy. if there is some time for the father, the mother, and the baby to stay together, it will mean so much to the family. When we have the right social conditions, we should give positive support to the father, the mother, and the baby. And this is positive support for the family. Therefore, this amendment is a very important one. President, before I go into this topic, allow me to say something about the statements made before the summer by CS4A and SLW. At that time, the CS4A, who was acting CE, responded to reporters on the 19th of June, saying that he said hopefully legislators would not put forward any amendments. And the SLW on that same day also said that hopefully there would be no bills committee, and said that extending PL from 3 days to 5 days is the only acceptable option to the administration. In January, another bill was withdrawn. That was a bill on worker reinstatement, and it was withdrawn. And there were other instances of the same category. I hope the CS4A and SLW will understand that as the people's representatives, we may comment on or criticize or oppose to the government's proposals. This is just normal. And the Basic Law also authorizes members to put forward amendments to the administration's proposals. It's just like what you heard in the 2016 survey. Half of the respondents said that hopefully it could be extended to 7 days, and 27.5% said it should be extended to 10 days. In other words, altogether, 80% of employees supported an extension to 7 days or more. And it is just reasonable for members here to listen to the public. Whether it is eventually passed is another story, but I hope the executive will not neglect or dismiss the authority of members to put forward proposals. And please do not threaten members by saying that you would withdraw the bill, which may contain imperfect solutions. Coming back to the bill, the PL is to allow the father to enjoy salaried leave at the time when the baby is born, so the man and woman can share the responsibility of taking care of a newborn. And this is not just the responsibility of the mother, of course. The father has an equally important responsibility. It is by so doing that we can have a balanced family relationship. We have had PL for 4 days, but compared to advanced countries, we are really too late. Today we scrutinize the proposal to extend PL from 3 days to 5 days. The labor sector has been insisting on 7 days, but of course, compared to England, Belgium, and Finland, they have 8 to 10 days, and even in Shenzhen, in Guangdong province, they already have 10 days full paid PL. So there is a big gap, and there is room for improvement. In 2012, civil servants started to have 5 days full paid PL. 6 days have passed, and even if we carry the amendment today, the employees in the private sector cannot compare with civil servants because they may have 5 days, but they are only paid 80%. Well, just like what the previous SLW, Mr. Matthew Chung, said, as the administration, would consider the affordability of the employers. And as for the PL, Hong Kong is a special situation because we have SMEs making up most of the businesses in Hong Kong. Let me mention, in countries where there is a longer PL, don't they have SMEs as well? They are also economically very much developed. Why is it that they have longer PL, like Switzerland? and Germany, they have many SMEs as well. President, Hong Kong's birth rate is on the decline. According to the Census and Statistics Department, in 2017, the birth rate was 7.7%. Compared to 1986, when it was 13%, there is a drop of 50%. And in 2003, it reached the lowest point at 7%. But of course, in 2003, we had SARS. In July this year, the Federation of Youth Groups released a report to boost Hong Kong's birth rate. It found that 70% of the respondents did not want to have children, mainly because it was so costly to bring up a child. 55% said it was because of housing problems. So we understand that many Hong Kong people did not want to have babies because of the financial burden. In other countries, the aim of the PL and also baby carrying leave are to encourage birth rates. But according to the legislative brief given by the administration is of the view that the PL is just to assist male employees to take up family responsibility at the time the baby is born. It did not mention how the PL can incentivize people to have more babies in order to tackle the aging problem. Here, I'd like to issue a serious warning. Our birth rate is always the lowest in the world. And this has gone from one generation to another. In other words, this low birth rate will compound so that the aging problem will become more serious. If you say it is serious 10 years down the road, it will just be more serious 30 years down the road. If you don't deal with it now, you will have to pay a very heavy price. President, on this bill, members put forward 20 amendments altogether. Some to increase it to 7 days, some to have annual reviews, and also to have full pay for PL. But the president is of the view that the bill is only about increasing the number of days, and it agreed with the administration that annual review would have a charging effect on the administration. So you only allowed amendments that seek to increase the number of days. I find this so unfortunate. The administration once promised that when PL was made, there would be annual reviews. There was the implementation on the 27th of February 2015, and you only started the review in July 2016, and you reported to LAB in November 2017, and only in June 2018 you came to the Legislative Council. In other words, a lapse of 3 years. In responding to the amendments put forward by members, the administration said that you would review labor laws from time to time, and you do not need to go down the legislative route to achieve this purpose. But then if you look at statutory minimum wage, the provisions say that there should be a biannual review at least. And the administration also said that it would not rule out having more frequent reviews. But again, there was only a biannual review. That is why the Bills Committee would like to introduce an annual review mechanism to ensure that the administration will regularly review PL to give more protection to employees. But then it's unfortunate that this would not be processed. The administration opposed to annual reviews because it said that there would be the incurrence of 3.7 million new expenditure, and this will be against Article 74 of the Basic Law because there is a charging effect. So the crux of the matter is whether the administration is willing to do something about PL, family-friendly atmospheres, and also that you are willing to tackle the aging problem. Therefore, this is about the will of the government. In 2011, and also in 2009 and 2011, there were the passing of different labor laws, and you started to apply for funding from Legislative Council to create the post of an assistant director and a principal labor officer at the Labor Department. And you wanted to have these new posts in order to take care of 3 new pieces of legislation. So you were willing to deal with that. And since you now increase the PL, we hope that you will soon come to the Finance Committee to make establishment proposals soon. President, I'd like to mention something that happened in 2012. In March of that year, you announced that starting from the 1st of April that year, your civil servants, including government school teachers, would enjoy PL. But then, subsidized school teachers who are also in the school sector would not benefit from the policy. The Professional Teachers Union was the biggest union in Hong Kong for teachers, so we put up a fight, and before that school year started, you announced administratively that starting from the 1st of September of 2012, qualified men teachers would also enjoy 5 days full pay PL, and these would include those who are engaged in subsidized schools and also kaput schools, including teachers, non-teaching staff, and other professional staff, that they will also enjoy a 5-day full pay PL. 6 years have passed, and this piece of legislation has come late. Well, even so, when all employees can enjoy a longer PL, it is still something good. I hope we can all fight to extend it to 7 days or even more. Mrs. Carrie Lam, on the 10th of this month, announced her PA for 2018. She said that with immediate effect, ML would be extended to 14 weeks. If you can issue administrative notice in order to take care of the issue of PL for subsidized schools, directly subvented schools, and kaput schools, then this time around, you can do the same. You can make use of administrative notice to provide 14 weeks ML to women teachers in subsidized schools and other types of schools instead of having them wait for legislative amendments. President, lastly, I'd like to remind the Secretary, who has always emphasized that increasing the number of days of PL would mean a bigger burden for SMEs. But then, out of 103 countries and places, Hong Kong ranks 4 from the bottom in terms of statutory holidays. On average, they have 30 days of statutory holidays. In Hong Kong, the labor sector only has 12 days. Increasing PL doesn't mean we want to have more time for rest for employees, but then we are promoting a family-friendly environment.
Mr. Jeremy Tam. First of all, the Civic Party has all along asked for 7 full paid PL days. The reason is simple. Mothers are under great pressure in taking care of the child, and by traditional values, the duty of caring for a child falls squarely on the mother. And the mothers have to take care of the child as well as the family. And earlier, there were some surveys. 90% of the respondent mothers said that after giving birth to a child, they lack sufficient sleep. 50% said that they don't lack support from their family. 10 to 15% suffer from postpartum depression. And they have even thought about harming their children. Hong Kong lacks family-friendly policies, though the Civic Party has all along advocated for 7 PL full paid days. It can help relieve the pressure of mothers and also ease the financial burden of families. According to the Human Resources Club Managers Survey, in a survey in 2017, over 70% of the respondents said that PL should be 7 days or more, and 30% of the employees suggested 14 days, 10 days or even more. PL days should be a right of the employees. It's not a benefit. 7 days is a reasonable period, and there is a need for that. Civic Party has all along advocated for 7 PL days. For myself, in my office, I have also been giving 7 PL days, and then a male employee gets this 7 PL days just recently. And this employee has also asked for additional leave. 7 days are not enough, especially for new father. It's grossly inadequate. I have some similar experience. It's important that the father takes care of the family. There are so many household chores to be taken care of, which cannot be performed by your wife, and you need to help her. Well, would it be the case that many male employees will take PL at the same time? If we talk about an SME employing 10 or so staff members, so that possibility is very slim. Recently, some legislators spoke on a radio program saying that there should not be even one single PL day. Well, in the past, even mothers didn't get any ML days. And this legislator was worried that having PL will lead to close down of many shops. I think times have changed, and the society should advance as a whole. And PL days are the right of the employees. Maybe a male employee will only get one PL once in a lifetime, and we're just talking about a few days. How much impact will it have on the company? Well, how many employers are as miserly as this legislator? In fact, in many countries, PL are deemed a right. Denmark 14 days, Sweden, Finland 18 days, and Sweden 40 ML plus PL days for the parents. Mr. Chung mentioned that in other countries, maybe the tax is high, and while the income tax can be as high as 30 to 40%. Hence, there are a lot of benefits. It sounded logical at first, but then when I think more, let's look at this. PL is not borne by the government. The cost, but rather the companies. Are we posing an extra burden on companies? In April 2018, we endorsed the two-tier profit tax system. We used to have 16.5% as profit tax. Now, after the change, for the first $2 million of profits, 8.25% will be charged, and the remainder 16.5%. And if we talk about SME earning a profit of $2 million or more, in terms of the tax concessions, you would have saved up $165,000, and if you are even smaller, you'll make $1 million, and you'll have saved $82,500 every year. So you may not be hiring an a staff with a salary of over $30 million, and the daily wage may be just $1,000. And if you give an extra 2 days, you will just be paying an extra $2,000. So that's nothing compared to the savings that you have in relation to profits tax. So it's not like what Mr. Chung said. You are trying to ram through this council many labor benefits legislation. You are just asked to pay a small amount, and I don't think we're asking too much here. And also some government officials here, I would like to appeal to the biggest employer, the government, to take the lead in providing 7 PL days to civil servants and to make sure that staff of outsourced contractors can be treated the same in order to promote family-friendly policies. Well, since the secretary is here, let me also say this. I find it very strange here. Can we discuss it here? If there is an abortion or a miscarriage, rather, according to what is set out in the bill, the benefit doesn't apply to miscarriage cases. But if you look at the EDB, how it, what are the guidelines to schools? It sets. Its suggestion is this: say if the spouse has delivered but is stillborn, then you can still apply for MLPL. And if you are involved in a miscarriage or abortion, then PL is not applicable. I don't think this is the best approach, but at least, well, the EDB said that if there is a delivery and then there is a stillborn, you can still enjoy PL. But then say, if you, for whatever reason, your pregnancy is terminated, then that is not covered. I know what the secretary is going to say in response. Say if the women takes ML and there is a miscarriage, and under the existing law, if the pregnancy is over 28 weeks and there is miscarriage, she will still be entitled to 10 weeks of ML. And in the future, and that will be turned into 14 weeks. Then we find it very strange. This woman, because of miscarriage, can enjoy ML. But do you think that in that case, doesn't the husband have to accompany her too? Well, let's not be heartless here. Well, of course, you may say he doesn't need to care for the baby, but don't be so heartless. That's not the approach taken by the EDB. Well, it says that if this is a stillborn, well, that means that there is no baby to take care of. The EDB still suggests that the PL be given to the husband. So based on this, I hope that the administration can go back and think about this, whether there is room for amendment, so that the different pieces of legislation can be standardized and rationalized, and the same treatment can be given to all. So a consistent set of standards be applied to all. Now for PL, we have been striving for this for many years, and the progress has been slow. And in 2014, the Democratic camp has asked for 7 PL days. Unfortunately, that was voted down on by the pro-establishment camp, and the FTU, the several members, don't practice what they preach. They said that they support 7 days, but then they voted otherwise. And Jonathan Ho, Chung Hong, and Kwok Wei-kang voted down on the 7 PL days, and they also vote. The FTU also refused to side with the workers as far as the pay is concerned. And Mr. Jonathan Ho said that all you need to do is press a button to resolve the issue. Now, if you want to do it tomorrow, well, I mean, as long as you are willing to press a button, then starting with tomorrow, we can enjoy 7 PL days. The birth rate is on the decline all the time in Hong Kong, which is shown by statistics. In 2017, the birth rate is 1.1 9, which is fourth from the bottom around the world. And the reason is because Hong Kong lacks family-friendly policies. 7 PL days will be an important component of this family-friendly policy, and we should not give up on it just because the employer said it's difficult. Well, there is indeed no difficulty because, as I said, you have already saved up on your on profits tax. Well, but say if a company is making a loss and you still ask us to show them more, then it's not reasonable. But then, as I said, we're just talking about a sum of $1,000 or $2,000, so it's not going to be of great impact. It's not something to be paid out by the government. Well, that's maybe a potential burden, but the amount is really small. So I hope that we all support all the CSAs proposed by the Democratic camp. So I speak.
Dr. Kwok, President, when it comes to PL, the labor sector has nothing but sorrow. The government has said that if you move any amendment, we'll continue to procrastinate. What I feel shameful about this is that the current secretary used to be an academic PL serve multiple purposes. It can promote or increase fertility. It provides an incentive for gender equality and for men to take care of their infants and to encourage young people to hold on to their jobs after they have babies. We're in this situation now, which means that we are in a divided community. The culprit is the government and also the business sector. Some think that the PL is a big problem. But we're talking about a cost of $80 million additionally to all the employers. Are these businessmen really people? Mr. Tommy Jones says that even 1 day of PL is too much. Well, they are not speaking like a decent man, decent human. But the government listened to them. Actually, we could have over 7 PL days from the very beginning, but the government reduced it to 3 days. 6 years ago, the government started to provide PL of 5 days to civil servants. So it took the lead to do this. For the civil service, with 160,000 civil servants, those eligible, not those who claim PL, only the 0.02% or 3,000 of them are entitled to this. How alarming are these figures? How come this will lead to escalating costs for businesses, and then we will be driving people out of business? In 1974, President, more than 40 years ago, Nordic countries started to offer PL. You may say Nordic countries are socialist or genuinely socialist. China is a fake one. Socialist countries which attach importance to people have found out that after introducing PL, that even the mortality rate of pregnant women has decreased. I don't want to talk about the tragedies that we see annually, and mothers who have just delivered cannot cope with the responsibility to care for their infants, commit suicide. There are so many tragedies. One of the ways, effective ways, to prevent postnatal depression is allow the husbands to take care of them by offering them PL. In a recent report published by the World Economic Forum on productivity, Hong Kong's ranking has dropped by 1 place. We are now 7th. But it doesn't matter a lot. But for labor market, we rank number 11th, and our labor rights rating is 0. Well, it's a big 0 mark for Hong Kong. Secretary for Labor and Welfare, you are responsible for labor benefits and labor rights. Aren't you a little bit ashamed of this? And we are comparing ourselves with third world countries, totalitarian countries and regimes. Well, we're better than these countries, perhaps, but we shouldn't be comparing ourselves with these countries. And we should not heckle over whether it's PL day should be 3 or 5 or 7. I said for Hong Kong as a whole, the additional cost is 86 million to $100 million, and according to some personnel and consultant, if you hire 10 people, the average salary is 15,000. The additional cost for a year is $240. It's the cost of a meal. And we're talking about a very divided community because of this. Just over the boundary, some John offers 10 days. You know that Mrs. Carrie Lam likes to lead her team to Singapore, and we haven't learned 10% of the beneficial measures of Singapore. But we learn from them how to crack down on opposition, and we will soon be an equal to Singapore. And the salary cap concern is of 14,500 Hong Kong dollars. And for the first 4 weeks of the leave, the mother can share the leave entitlement with the father. So we should learn what's good, what's practice, what's good in Singapore. And we have litigations brought by an ex-leader with a view to bankrupting the opposition. We should allow more employees to stay on in their job, especially young employees, to continue to work for their employers and to continue to contribute to our society. If we stand in the opposite side to employees, well, we just make young people that detest Hong Kong even more. When we discuss how the government should provide a tax rebate to retain the IT professionals, I know that a young couple would like to consider to stay in Hong Kong, and they would consider whether this Hong Kong is a friendly place to employees. I believe they would decide not to stay. This year we are going to increase ML to 16 weeks.
增加啊，做埋啲詭計啊，恐
And then the government is also resorting to the threatening tricks. This shouldn't be the kind of behavior of our government. I don't see anyone from FTU. Maybe they are ashamed of themselves. Every time when we talk about PL, we would point out that in fact the FTU has betrayed employees. The government stresses that we must not forget, we must respect the LAB. Over the years, the LAB is considered by many employees as a platform for exploitation. How often do we see the reasonable employee employment policies proposed and decided by the LAB? Of course not. Many employees have been cheated by the FTU. Of course, FTU doesn't care about employees, and employees have been betrayed time and again. Now the PL days will increase from 3 to 5, and we don't know when the next improvement will come. And Mr. Ho Kai-ming talked about gradual progress. Why don't we get 7 days now? And they have FTU has got representatives on the EXCO. Mr. Wong Kok-kin can threaten to resign if the PL days is not increased to 7. Of course, he won't do this because they want to continue to put up an appearance that they are here to help employees. Secretary, I hope as a professor, as an academic, you understand that when we make social progress, what we did in the past, which was mean, there should be change continually. If the government can offer us a timetable, maybe very reluctantly, I will accept the offer now. Let's say if they promise that next year the PL days will go up to 7, then that would be a very good beginning. And now even an annual review cannot be agreed to. So how many more years do we have to wait? 5, 10, before we see the PL entitlement go up to 7 days? When we say that our fertility rate is low, we need to get mainland immigrants, government policy and measures adopted by the business sector go against our population objective. Young couples find it difficult to have ease of mind and confidence to start a family and have children. When you say that we encourage you to stay in Hong Kong, form a family, give birth to children which will become good citizens in the future, but you are not helping them in any way, in accommodation, in other social environments and conditions. You make sure that they don't see a bright future. You spend hundreds of billions of dollars on white elephant projects. Those are not helpful. And this year, the government would increase ML entitlement and the government would foot the bill. So why don't you offer 2 more days of PL and the government should come out and say that I would foot the additional bill. We have spent $100 billion on the white elephant project called the high-speed rail project. We could have spent money on PL And if the government is willing to pay for 2 additional PL days, then the business sector won't say no. But I'm also still concerned that the business sector will keep asking for more. They have asked for a subsidy for the cancellation of MPF offsetting mechanism, and now they are getting a subsidy for the additional ML entitlements. PL is not about helping the husband. I see you have 2 female officers with you. If you give them 2 more leave days, there will be a greater incentive for women to have children. Why do we want to create more divisions and make this discussion more cumulus? The government should not shirk its responsibility.
Members, we are debating this issue of PL. It is unavoidable that you would have a fierce debate, but according to rules of procedure, our speeches must not be offensive or insulting to other members. I'd like to draw your attention to that, Mr. Vincent Chang.
代理主席，我嘅發言
Madam Deputy, I speak in support of the Employment A Bill 2018 and also the technical amendments to increase PL from 3 days to 5 days. Since 2015, we started to have PL for 3 days, and many working families would like that to be increased as soon as possible. Now I hope they can have their expectation fulfilled. I can see that we do not have enough employee welfare in Hong Kong. It's just like 10 weeks ML. That has been with us for almost 4 decades, and the administration is only proposing to increase it to 14 weeks recently. Now we are only taking one step forward. Recently, look at Mankhut that attacked Hong Kong. Hong Kong people were so industrious. They tried every way to go back to work. But the situation was dangerous on the streets, and people had to go to work in very inclement weather, and the administration asked people to be accommodating. But this was not possible on the ground. Therefore, we need a good policy, good system in order for employees to be protected. Coming back to PL, Madam Deputy, sometimes we compare Hong Kong with other countries in terms of employees' benefits. And in many places, the role of government and employers will be different. Just look at South Korea and Taiwan, PL for 5 days. And in Taiwan, this is the responsibility of the employer. And Singapore encourages baby birth because they have a small population, and they give 2 weeks PL, totally supported by the government in order to reduce cost for enterprises. In other developed economies, there are 1 week to 2 weeks of PL. They also have baby carrying leave and other kinds of leave. But very often, society or employment insurance or government funds would support such leave. In this graph from the ILO that was released in 2014, well, this is a graph for showing ML and PL. You can see the distribution of funding for PL. Let us look at developed economies. Mostly, the funding for PL is from government funds or insurance. But if you look at Asia, 70% of that is supported by employers. So things differ. And in developed economies, a lot of social benefit is supported by government. Well, Hong Kong is a developed economy. I think that is useful reference for us. Madam Deputy, Coming back to the bill, from the angle of employee protection or support for working families, the DAB thinks that it is appropriate for the administration to increase ML and PL appropriately. We are increasing PL to 5 days because we respect the consensus of the LAB, which is telling us that this is the product of the discussion. At the end of last year, the LAB arrived at a consensus of PL for 5 days. The LAB is mainly made up of employer and employee representatives. There are different trade associations, and they are representative to a certain degree. Some of the members said that they are there to sell out on employees and they are only using slogans. I am disappointed by such smearing of the LAB. The LAB has a good foundation all these years as a platform for discussion. They do not only shout slogans. It's just like statutory minimum wage. Starting from May 2011, we had SMW. If we had set it at a high level, there would not be any discussion and we might not even have SMW today. That is a fact. 98% of Hong Kong enterprises are SMEs. Without government funding, how should we increase PL? What should be the pace of increasing PL? We must have regard for all parties. I won't agree with the businesses totally that there should not be even 1 day of PL, because I don't think that represents the view of the majority of employers. And if you want to increase it to 7 days, that would be beyond the consensus of the LAB. Labor representatives of the LegCo and employee representatives of the LAB issued a statement on Monday saying that there have been rounds of tug of war at the LAB before we could have this consensus of 5 days, and it is hard one. Therefore, the DAB would support the amendment bill. On the other hand, I support the bill because I agree that we should be gradual and orderly in fighting for better labor welfare. The CU Asia Pacific Research Survey showed, that was in September, that over 50% of respondents said that 5 days would not be good enough. However, they also asked whether people would be happy to pocket it first. 70% found that acceptable. Only 16% said no. Many people thought that people could pocket a 5-day PL. That seems to be the consensus of the public. But at the same time, I hope the administration can promise that at the appropriate time you can review the days of PL. In 2014-15, when we discussed 3 days of PL, we had the same scene. Those who supported 3 days were criticized by those who wanted 7 days, saying that you sell out on employees. If that was what we did last time, well, actually 3 days was the consensus of the LAB. If at that time you had been going for 7 days and would accept nothing else, then today we would not be discussing whether we should have 5 days. Instead, we would still be having a tug of war on whether we should have PL. 3 years have passed, and I hope we can pass the bill as soon as possible so fathers and mothers can have 2 more days of PL, instead of having them wait another 2 years. You are aware that in terms of labor welfare, the PA has announced a number of measures. We should waste no time to roll out measures to protect labor. And since we have arrived at a consensus of 5 days, let us go for it. And those who are fighting for 7 days would not simplify the issue. Well, at the same time, we know that a lot of enterprises are doing it. In fact, many businesses are doing it on their own volition because they want to retain staff, and they are giving leave over and above the statutory requirement. But leave is only one factor. You can have flexi hours, you can have more family-friendly policies, you can provide other financial incentives. The DAB has been talking about these all these years, and we think employers can do all that. Now I'd like to speak on my own experience before I conclude. I have 3 children. I remember when my eldest son was born, that was in 2007. There were no maternity leave at that time. And even now, as a legislator, I don't have PL. But it's not easy to be a father. Even if you have the leave, you don't actually have any free time. Your wife needs your assistance all the time. The wife has to have some rest. You need to take care of her. You need to take care of the newborn baby. You need to change diapers. So the leave is not leave at all. You are kept very busy. Therefore, I hope that this discussion will allow the community to understand and know the pressures on young families today. We need to give them more support and encouragement. You can't just tell them to have children and not support them. Lastly, I hope we can carry the bill ASAP so Hong Kong fathers can have 5 days PL. I so speak in support of the government's amendment.
Miss Claudia Mo. There are so many fathers within this council, but there are not a lot of mothers in this council. Now, Miss Eunice Young, a mom-to-be, just spoke, and she should be most convincing because her welfare is at stake. But then she still said that we should pocket the 5 days first. She said that we should appreciate the difficulties of the employers. They couldn't afford it. And she is towing the line of the Liberal Party. She is not saying that a longer PL is not good, but then we can have a long-term objective. It's good to have a few more days in the future. But for the time being, let's take a gradual and orderly approach. Let's wait till the LAB has come to a consensus. This is most regrettable, especially when she said that fathers sometimes suffer from postnatal depression as well. This is a medical term, parental postpartum depression on the part of the father. This is a medical term. Some people said that this is just some emotional problem, but indeed, for a new mother, she can suffer from postpartum depression because of, say, the environment, the economic condition. Also, her physical condition will also lead to postpartum depression. Or ONG specialists will tell you that because of the enormous hormone change, the mother will suffer from emotional problem easily. But what about fathers? What do we mean by postpartum depression on the part of father? Well, let me tell you something about PPPD. The American journal said that, medical journal said that 1 out of 10 new fathers would suffer from PPPD. And the condition is really unimaginable. Well, this is in English.
Sense of helplessness and despair.
So it's a kind of a helplessness and hopelessness. It's a medical condition. It's a complete nightmare. And then he feels that he's being trapped. He can't escape. I've got this new baby. What is the way out? Some employers' representatives here in this council, listen up. He doesn't want to go home. He would rather spend more time at work in the office. So why shouldn't the employers applaud and celebrate on this? Some employers' representatives at the council say that we don't even need one single day of PL apart from concerns over money. You can feel that this kind of attitude and remark stems from a paternal type of society, a traditional society. So the mother is at home and the father should be working. So we should not be talking about paternity leave at all. This is another kind of sexual discrimination. And then there have been surveys in the community. It is survey done properly, done in the community, academic survey, saying that this kind of father's postpartum depression, so the percentage can be as high as 25%. 1 out of 4 fathers suffer from this. Another surprising finding is that one of the biggest predictors for postpartum depression on the part of the fathers is that if the new mother suffers from postpartum depression, very likely the fathers will also suffer the same. And this possibility is as high as 50%, half of the fathers. So someone from the DAB yesterday said, yes, we need paternity leave because the fathers have to take care of the mothers who suffer from postpartum depression. Well, he is referring to this term, but he doesn't know really the meaning of postpartum depression. Well, PPD can be life-threatening. And it's life-threatening not only to the mom, but also to the baby. There have been cases in Hong Kong like this. I will not share with you the details of each case. It's meaningless to do so. But you should know that there have indeed been cases like that. And we are debating about, an extra 2 days here. It is like the magnanimous grace from the government. And if the fathers suffer from PPD, it's like a nightmare. He's in a hopeless situation. He can't even go to work. He might even he may apply for 2-day sick leave. Is it illegal to apply for sick leave? And you said that it will have a great adverse impact on the business of the employers. Well, come on. The birth rate in Hong Kong is so low. We rank first among the world in terms of the very low birth rate. And not many people take ML. And we're not now talking about 2 days of PL only. So they would like to dwell on that irrespectively. Mothers may suffer from PPD for a whole year. And that has nothing to do with whether we have 5 or 7 days of PL. Now, mothers may suffer from depression 5 or 7 days after giving birth to a child because there is a great change in the hormones within the mother. The mother may lose control of her emotions and she may cry and shout for no reason at all. And if the father is given 5 to 7 days of PL, he can help. What's the big deal of having an extra 2 days? Please help mothers who might suffer from postpartum depression. Now, normally, if someone talks to her, helps ease her emotions, that would be good. I'm not talking about personal experience. I'm not making this remark arbitrarily. This is very much stated in the DH's website. this kind of depression, which surfaces within the first few days after giving birth, it will disappear, but it would be best or more preferable if someone is there to comfort the mother. And if that persists for a long time, that may be life-threatening, and then the mother should seek help from the psychiatrists. She may have to take drugs. And we should not be accepting the remark of someone who upholds the values of a paternal society, saying that one single PL day is too many. And if I would also like to hope that miscarriage is also covered under the law. You can't imagine the feelings of the mother after, or the sufferings of the mother after having a miscarriage. You may have compassion developed for the baby, and you should give this 7 PL days to the father. Please, you will not consider it, right? The birth rate in Hong Kong is so very low. Any measure that can facilitate childbirth should be welcome. But then we are arguing about these 2 extra days, and the government sounds authoritative. Well, the LAB's consensus is 5 days, take it or leave it. And then somebody mentioned about pocketing it first just now. This is the political reality. We can't pocket the political reform package because it is there to last forever. And Beijing will screen the candidates for you as far as CE election is concerned. You ask us to pocket it first? Is there justification to do so? Yes. Maybe later on, 2 years, we will have 7 days. And we should thank the government for being so gracious or helpful. But why is the birth rate in Hong Kong so low, apart from consideration about money? Well, many years ago, we said that we needed $4 million to raise a child. But that figure is kind of meaningless because we are not asked to pay it at one go. Maybe every month you make $20,000 or $30,000, and so you can still support it. We're not asking you to have $4 million at the bank at one instant. But the Hong Kong society is so a distorted society. Let's look at education. As we have a brainwashing type of education. Ask Joshua Wong about what's happening to our education system. We have an authoritarian government here in Hong Kong. Well, 3 to 5 days, take it or leave it. Isn't that kind of doesn't that show that we have an authoritarian government in Hong Kong? Well, maybe we should migrate to other countries before we have a child. Well, there is one ironic point that I must raise. Animal welfare in Hong Kong has been very much discussed in the Hong Kong society in the past decade. That's something good. But why we are discussing animal welfare these days? Because more and more young couples decide not to have a child. They rather keep a pet or a dog or a dog or cat, and they have something warm to hold or embrace. They would rather have that because they don't want to have a child in the Hong Kong society. They want to have some breathing space.
Mr. Tommy Zhang.